You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there's a lot to get to today. There honestly is. I'm not making up any stories, no recurring segments. I'm not stretching anything out. There's really a lot to get to today. It's so great to actually be talking about sports news that really, really matters. So great. I gotta start this show by recapping Hurricanes Bruins. And I gotta tell you, to start off this game, I was having a tough time getting into it. Both teams just came out flat. There was a feeling out process, which I understand. It just makes for boring hockey. You know, this is the first time that these guys are going up against each other in a really long time. The Hurricanes had a long rest, and the Bruins are insanely talented. So, yeah, there's going to be a feeling out process. I understand that. I'm not begrudging that. But in the early goings of that game, it was tough. But after the early part of that game, both teams really played great. The perfection line of Pasternak, Marchand, and Bergeron had their best game of the playoffs by far. They were all over the ice making plays. They all had 2 points. Obviously, they got the goal at the end of the first period. Really nice passing play. Everyone's focusing on the left side of the ice, and no one picks up Pasternak on the right side of the ice, and he just snipes it by Mrazek. That was a really, really nice goal. If that line gets going, watch out. The Bruins are unbeatable. And then in the second period, the controversial Charlie Coyle goal, which I thought was a goal. I mean, the explanation by the league did make sense. Basically what they said was there was a hand pass, but Mrazek covered the puck, so that negated the hand pass. Which even then, that was a tough hand pass to call. I don't like the hand pass rule. I mean, unless you're actually closing your hand on the puck and throwing it to your teammate, you know, that's not what that rule is there for. So I didn't mind that being a goal. The explanation was kind of weird, but it did make sense. I just don't like the hand pass rule. I think it should be fixed. The NHL has a lot of rules that they kind of need to clarify what it's for, like the offsides rule. How many challenges have you seen because a guy's skate blade may be a millimeter off the ice? I mean, that's not what that rule is there for. You've got to be true to the heart of the rule. No, I had no problem with the Charlie Coyle goal. I thought it was a good goal. And then 21 seconds later, Brock McGinn with the great shorthanded effort to get a goal himself By the way, it's nice to see Brock McGinn producing. He killed the Islanders last year, and if you go deep enough in my Twitter history, at RealJacobValk, you'll find a tweet saying that I wanted Brock McGinn on the Islanders because he was out there making plays so much. He does a lot of things that just don't show up on the score sheet. I mean, against the Rangers, he was invisible. Truthfully, I didn't even notice him out on the ice. But that's because everyone was scoring in that series for the Hurricanes. In a game like this, where McGinn has a shorty, obviously, you're going to take notice. So I like McGinn a lot. Really good player, underrated player, plays the game the right way. One thing that should be mentioned is that the Hurricanes thoroughly out-hit the Bruins. 51-32. The Hurricanes had a great physical game going. The Bruins are the more physical team when you look at it on paper, but the Hurricanes didn't back down. They had a bunch of guys throwing the body, like Svechnikov, Martinook, Slavin, Edmondson, Aho. I give those guys a ton of credit for not backing down to the big bad Bruins. And then the double overtime goal by Bergeron. Really nothing special. Just a good shot by Bergeron. But it was kind of funny. You could sense everyone thinking, oh good God, are we going to get another quintuple overtime game? I mean, the game ended like less than 2 minutes into double overtime. So no one minded it. But it was scary there for a little bit. At intermission between single overtime and double overtime, there was a sense of this is going to be deja vu. We're going to have another marathon type game. But thankfully, Bergeron ended it in time so that way the Islanders could beat the Capitals 4-2. They played great. Yeah, they started an hour late. Okay, fine. I don't mind that. It actually gave me time to get some schoolwork done. In the first period, and even through most of the second period, the Islanders played like garbage. I mean, they only had 2 shots on net in the whole first period. They were taking a bunch of penalties. Tom Wilson, as much as I hate him, I'll give him credit for knocking the Islanders off their game. He did what Todd Reirden wanted him to do. He got the Islanders to commit stupid penalties. The Islanders spent a lot of time on the penalty kill, and the Capitals took advantage. While their power play this year hasn't been that good, it's been middle of the road, they're still a great power play team. Ovechkin, Oshie, Carlson, Backstrom went healthy. God only knows if he's going to play in Game 2. They're a great power play team. So the plan was throw the Islanders off their game, get them to commit stupid penalties, and then take advantage of them on the power play. Now that's all well and good, but realize, this is Barry Trotz you're going up against. He's not going to let the team be undisciplined for too long. I can say with a high degree of confidence that Trotz was saying to his guys in the second intermission, you have to stay out of the box. Don't let him get under your skin. This is what they want. They know that they can't beat us 5-on-5. All throughout that game, the Islanders dominated 5-on-5 play. The Capitals just couldn't get the puck out of their zone. They couldn't get anything going offensively. The Islanders were dominating that game on even strength. So Trotz got his guys to play disciplined hockey. And it worked. Anders Lee with the goal less than a minute into the third period. By the way, I give Anders Lee a ton of credit for going up against Tom Wilson. I mean, that is a crazy mismatch. I give Lee credit for, sticking up for everyone, proving why he's the captain, but he was letting Wilson punch his helmet. He was protecting his face. He was just letting his helmet get punched repeatedly. I mean, hey, that's what I would do if I was in a fight with Tom Wilson and I was Anders Lee. I can't outslug him. I'm just gonna turtle. It was a smart move by Lee. It really was. And then the Capitals get the Islanders where they want them. On the penalty kill. Braden Holtby makes a stupid pass. Turns over the puck and Josh Bailey just snipes it. Great pass by Nelson. Great forecheck by Nelson. Nelson finds Bailey to give the Islanders the lead. But even if I'm discounting that goal, Josh Bailey had a great game. You can't overstate how great Bailey was. He was a +3, out there on the ice making plays left and right. If this is the Josh Bailey that the Islanders are going to get for this series, I'm all for it. It took this guy long enough to finally put it all together. Better late than never. There are some other things that I want to say, but I'll save it for the preview tomorrow. I'll leave you in suspense. I know exactly what I want to say. I just don't want to repeat the same thing over and over again. The one thing I'll say is it pertains to the physical side of the game. And Matt Martin only getting 8 minutes and 21 seconds of ice time is inexcusable. If you don't want to put Martin out on the ice, that's okay, but realize you're losing a lot physically. The Islanders need to be wary of that. As for the Capitals, Ovechkin still invisible. I did say that the Islanders could shut him down. I was right. TJ Oshie with 2 goals on the power play. I mean, it was kind of funny. Eric is a big Islanders fan and a big Blues fan. If you remember from the Beyond the Game days. I thought about texting him, remind me why the Blues traded Oshie? But I didn't. But if TJ Oshie and John Carlson and Tom Wilson and Evgeny Kuznetsov are the only guys that show up for the Capitals, that's not good. It's good that those guys are showing up, but they need Ovechkin. It's just that simple. The Capitals are only going to go as far as he takes them. And Trotz knows that. He's going to put together a game plan that, while it may not shut Ovechkin down wholly, there's a good chance that it'll severely limit his impact. Like I said, there's a lot more I could say, but I really want to save it for tomorrow. So, I'll move to Coyotes Avalanche. Holy good God, did the Coyotes play like garbage in this game. You cannot have 14 shots in a whole playoff game and expect to win. That is absolutely inexcusable. You should have that in a period. In fact, the Avalanche had that in a period. In the second period, the Avalanche had 15 shots. In the whole game, the Coyotes had 14 shots. They were lifeless. I mean, the one thing I'll say is it was a good game. I was right. It was 0-0 for the vast majority of that game. And then with less than 7 minutes left to go in regulation, Nazem Kadri scores on the power play. JT Compher scores 10 seconds after that. Mikko Rantanen scores 73 seconds after that. I mean, you want to talk about knockout blows. That's like in the UFC where the guy knocks the other fighter out. And the guy's sprawled out on his back unconscious. So the other guy just climbs on top of him and still is pounding him on his head. That's what the Avalanche were doing with the Compher and Rantanen goals. The Coyotes played like absolute garbage. There's no nice way to say it. The only guy who showed up was Darcy Kemper. I mean, I give Kemper credit. Alright, he kept the Coyotes in this game for as long as he could. Maybe I've got to start putting some respect on his name. I mean, look, he played his ass off against the Predators. In 3 of those 4 games, Kemper made at least 39 saves. And in this game, he made 37. I give him credit. I mean, he still allowed a bunch of goals. Kemper has only allowed less than 3 goals in these playoffs once. And that was in Game 3. So I have to ding him a little bit for that, but having said that, you know, Darcy Kemper isn't Martin Brodeur. If you allow him to face over 35 shots every game, yeah, he's gonna fold. I don't mind that. That's to be expected. I can't begrudge a player for doing what I expect him to do. The Coyotes need to pick him up both offensively and defensively, or else this series is going to be a romp. As for the Avalanche, they played about as close to a perfect game as you can get. Yeah, they didn't put the puck past Kemper in the first 2.5 periods, but it was a constant onslaught on net. When you're only giving up 14 shots, you're doing something right. And look, the Avalanche were getting really good chances. Nazem Kadri, all over the ice making plays. The guy had 7 shots. This is the best I've ever seen Kadri play. McKinnon trying to set up his teammates. Even the guys on the lower end of the totem pole for the Avalanche. Guys like Nieto, Nemesnikov, and Zadorov were having good games. They played a perfect game. And if they play like this all throughout the playoffs, I don't see anyone beating them in the Western Conference. As it stands right now, they are the best team in the Western Conference. Moving on now to Canadiens Flyers, the battle of the 2 great goalies, the wily veteran Price and the young hotshot in Hart. This game was exactly as advertised. Both goalies standing on their head, making great plays. This is going to be an old-time hockey series. There are going to be a lot of low-scoring games in this series. Hart's going to get his, and Price is going to get his. The one thing I'll say for the Canadians is they had a really one-dimensional offense in this game. It was really just Brendan Gallagher and Joel Armia. The Canadians had 28 shots in this game. Those two guys combined for 13 of them. That is inexcusable. You can't win like that. I don't mind Brendan Gallagher taking a lot of shots. That's fine. I really don't mind that. But Armia can't take 6 shots. Alright, if it's a guy like Weber or Drouin or Kotkaniemi or Domi or Suzuki or hell, Jeff Petrie the way he's been playing. Tomas Tatar also. I mean, Armia cannot take 6 shots. You've got to set up your offense better than that if you're Claude Julien. And for the Flyers, Joel Farabee, besides what he did to score the goal that ultimately won the game, had a fantastic game. First up, think about when he scored that goal. 16 seconds after Shea Weber tied it. I mean, you want to talk about a ball buster. That is the definition of a ball buster. On the physical side of things, he was showing up. Someone got really close to Carter Hart. I don't remember who it was, but Farabee got right in his face. It may have been Max Domi, because he got the roughing penalty with Farabee. I don't remember if it was or if it wasn't, but Farabee had a great two-way game going. And if the Flyers can get this type of production from their depth, as well as production from guys like Voracek and Giroux, they're set up really well. I mean, there's only so much Carey Price can do. He made that fantastic stick save. Sprawling across his net, it looked like Suzuki got a piece of it. Or it looked like, I think it was Scott Lawton, just missed the net. No, on slow-mo, you could see Carey Price, with his stick, deflected it. I mean, that's the save of the year. I hope you can find that clip if you haven't seen it yet. The last game that I want to talk about is Canucks Blues. Really even game except for the third period. Travis Green is one of the better coaches in the NHL. He made some great third period adjustments. And the Blues couldn't respond to it. Basically, what the change was that he didn't want the Canucks to focus on their quantity of chances. He wanted them to focus on the quality of their chances. And the Stetcher goal was a great passing play. The Bo Horvat goal, really nice pass by Pearson. I mean, even the first Horvat goal, the power play goal, the puck movement there was insane. They're a really unselfish team, great passing team. If you're Binnington, you have to constantly be moving. There's no settling. You don't know where that shot's going to come from. And the Canucks have a bunch of guys who can kill you. So I give the Canucks credit for that. As for the Blues, I mean, the biggest thing there is just chill out with the physical stuff. Because if it wasn't for the Canucks power play, you win that game. Yes, you wanted to assert yourself physically. Okay, fine, but there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. You gave up 6 power plays and gave up goals on 3 of them. You can't win like that. Having said that, though, it's an easy fix for the Blues. We know how great of a coach Craig Berube is. This is going to be a great coaching matchup. It's something I didn't talk about when I was making my pick in this series. I should have. Because that's a huge part of this series. The battle between Travis Green and Craig Berube. That chess match is going to be insane. Alright, now it's time to preview the 4 NHL games today. The first one is Blue Jackets Lightning. For both teams, conditioning is going to be really, really important. I mean, I'm not going to do team-specific things. Both teams played over 4 overtimes. They didn't play a whole 5th overtime, but they still played a good chunk of a 5th overtime. Over half, to be specific. I'd expect the early portion of this game, definitely the first period and maybe some of the second period, to be kind of boring hockey. Both teams are going to look to take it slow. They're not going to look to, go crazy on breakaways and outskate the other team. I think they're going to take it slow. They're going to wait until their adrenaline really kicks in. And then, after that, it's going to be off to the races. I mean, I'll say this. We're going to find out very quickly who's the best conditioned out of all these players. I mean, everyone played a bunch of minutes on Tuesday. And, look, while I can't skate, I can say with a high degree of confidence that doing that at that high a level for such an extended period of time, more than you're used to, takes a lot out of you. I mean, the message from the coaches is going to be you can rest on off days. You can rest in the off season. But I don't think it's going to work. I think this is going to be a slow game to start off with. And as we progress further into the game, you'll see the exciting stuff. Moving on now to Blackhawks Golden Knights. I mean, there's really not much I can say about this game. Game 1 was a romp. And I think Game 2 is going to be a romp. The Blackhawks just aren't a good team. Okay, they're just not. They don't have what it takes to win a game in this series. For the Golden Knights, just tighten up a little bit. I mean, I didn't think they played great in Game 1, but they still got 4 goals. A couple of their goals were shots that Corey Crawford should have stopped. Those were just shots where you put the puck on net and anything can happen. And there's logic to that, don't get me wrong. I love that strategy. But they weren't great scoring chances. That's the thing. I'd look for the Golden Knights to try to set up some more plays, get better quality scoring chances. They're the better team, by far. It's not even close. Look for them to thoroughly outplay the Blackhawks in every facet of the game. Moving on now to Hurricanes Bruins. I've heard some people say that conditioning is going to be an issue in this game. And I understand where they're coming from. Their game went into double overtime yesterday, and now they're playing another game tonight. But realize they didn't go too far into double overtime. Bergeron scored 73 seconds into double overtime. And those guys can be expected to skate 4 periods and not have a whole hell of a lot taken out of them. Yes, it's exhausting, there's no question, but I think they'll be fine for tonight. Both teams need to start out better. I'd look for them to really try to push the issue in the early going. The Hurricanes are going to look to continue their well-rounded play, and the Bruins are going to look to get the perfection line involved. Obviously, they did it yesterday. They're going to do it tonight. There's a reason that it's called the perfection line after all. But they're also going to focus on getting the McAvoy line cooking. Krejci, McAvoy, and Kasha. The Bruins made a big trade for Kasha in advance of the trade deadline. I remember running back up here to talk about it. That line played fantastically yesterday, and that's going to be a really important element to tonight's game. If that line plays well, the Bruins are going up 2-0. If not, the Hurricanes are going to win. The last game to talk about is Flames Stars. For the Flames, I would say just get your big guns cooking. I mean, as nice as it was for them to see Dubé and Anderson score, where was Tkachuk? Where was Monahan? Where was Lindholm? Where was Gaudreau? Those are the guys that need to produce if the Flames are going to win this series. Depth scoring isn't going to do it for the Flames. They're a top-heavy team. I mean, Milan Lucic has found the fountain of youth, and it's nice to see. I like Lucic. But it's got to be their big guns if they're going to win this thing. As for the Stars, it's pretty simple. Goes into what I just said. Continue shutting them down. Now the thing is, with that comes the Stars needing their depth to produce. And, you know, they're more of a physical team with their bottom six. It's really not built for scoring. The only guy who I would say is a true scorer there is Radek Faksa. I mean, I don't want to say that he's the key to this game or anything, but the Stars need someone to force the issue and score from their bottom six if they're going to win this thing. Their top six is going to be focused on shutting down the Flames' top six. It's up to their bottom six to put the puck in the net. Moving on now to football and the massive George Kittle extension. 5 years for $75 million. That is $15 million a year. That shatters any benchmark you want to use for how rich a contract is. In total value, Rob Gronkowski held the record with 54 mil. Kittle just shattered it. In average per year, Hunter Henry had the franchise tag, so that really doesn't count. Austin Hooper was the leader with 10.5 mil. Kittle just shattered it. 30 mil guaranteed up front. That breaks the record. 40 mil guaranteed throughout the life of the contract. That destroys the record. George Kittle just reset the tight end market. And you know what? I have no problem with it. Because George Kittle is by far and away the best tight end in the NFL. It's not Kelsey. It's not Hooper. It's not Rudolph. It's not Gronk. It's not Ertz. It's not Waller. It's Kittle. Is he light years ahead of those guys? With the exception of Kelsey, I would say yes. Kelsey is in that same universe. But Kittle is the better player. There are some people that'll say Kelsey is better, but for my money, it's Kittle. I mean, Kittle does everything you want a tight end to do. So does Kelsey, but Kittle just does it better. The Niners really didn't have great production from their wide receivers this year. I mean, they made the trade to get Emmanuel Sanders, but Dante Pettis was expected to do a lot, and he didn't. Deebo Samuel looks like he's going to be a really good player in this league for a long time, but when you have a second rounder coming in and immediately being your best wide receiver, that's an issue. This isn't Michael Thomas we're talking about. We're talking about a guy who only caught 3 touchdowns last year. Without Kittle, the Niners do nothing. Kittle had 85 catches for 1,053 yards last year. He was insane. And you know what? That's a step back from the year before, where he had 88 catches for 1,377 yards. I'd like him to be more of a red zone threat. In the past 2 years, he's caught 5 touchdowns each year. He's got to do a little better than that. And that's where Kelsey has an edge on him. Kelsey is a better red zone threat. And when you look at blocking, Kittle is one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. I don't think he's the best. There are better blockers than him. Max Williams with the Cardinals is a really good blocking tight end. Same thing with Nick Boyle. Dallas Goedert's right up there also. But Kittle's not too far behind them. George Kittle is a fantastic all-around tight end. There was a time when he was underrated. Not anymore. Everyone knows his name. They knew it before this extension. They're definitely going to know it now. Great move by the Niners. I have no problem with the move at all. Moving on now to the Cowboys bringing in Everson Griffin for 1 year at $6 million. That's the maximum that he can get. And this is a fantastic move. The Cowboys just made their defense exponentially scarier. Yes, they lost Byron Jones, but they still have DeMarcus Lawrence. They brought in Gerald McCoy. They still have Jalen Smith. They still have Chidobe Awuzie. In the draft, they drafted some really talented defensive players. Trayvon Diggs, Neville Gallimore, Reggie Robinson, and Bradley Anae. And now you've added Everson Griffin, a guy who, according to Pro Football Focus last year, had a 77.6 overall grade. Fantastic move. There's no way that you can hate this move. You want to tell me you have no idea where he's going to play? The coronavirus is a thing. You need as much depth as you can possibly get. Also, Dontari Poe and Tyrone Crawford are on the PUP list. I don't know if they're going to be ready for opening day or not. The one thing I know is the Cowboys just made one of the steals of the offseason. Hopefully, Jadeveon Clowney to the Jets is right around the corner. Because whatever he gets at this point in the offseason will be a huge, huge, huge steal. There are a couple deaths that happened in the football world yesterday that I have to talk about. The first one is Bill Yeoman passing away at the age of 92. He died from pneumonia and kidney failure. There is no better coach in the history of Houston Cougars football than Bill Yeoman. And it's not even close. Yeoman was there for 25 years. That's a quarter of a century. And in most of those years, he had the Cougars playing really, really good football. His legacy is really, really profound. He came up with a new version of the option offense called the veer option. It's basically a version of the triple option. The quarterback can bounce it to the outside. He can give it to one of his running backs to run right between the right tackle and the tight end, or he can give it to another running back so he can bounce it outside also. That revolutionized college football. He also became the first coach at a predominantly white school in Texas. Thank you, Wikipedia, for this, by the way. To sign an African-American player. Do I need to say much more than that? I mean, both from the football side of things and the humanitarian side of things, he was a great man. For whatever it's worth, that player was Warren McVay, who would actually win Super Bowl IV with the Chiefs. The veer option was insanely successful. For 4 years in the mid to late 60s, 66 through 69, the Cougars never finished with less than 6 wins, and that is mainly because of the veer offense that consistently had the Cougars in the top 5 in points per game in the nation. In 1969, they destroyed Auburn in the Blue Bonnet Bowl. I'll fast forward a little bit to 1976, when the Cougars went 10-2 on the heels of a 2-8 season. I mean, you go 10-2 after going 2-8, you're doing something right. That is a fantastic turnaround. That's a turnaround that boggles the mind. The Cougars would make the Cotton Bowl that year, and they would win it 30-21 over Maryland. I am going to butcher this guy's name because I've only seen it written. Alois Blackwell was the Cougars' best player that year. He was the offensive MVP of that game. He rushed for just under 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Yeoman went away from the Veer offense that year because he had a really good player in Blackwell. Then in 78, the Cougars made it back to the Cotton Bowl. They won the Southwest Conference that year. They won it in 76 also, forgot to mention that. And their offense that year was anchored by 2 really talented running backs. Randy Love, in his senior year, had 1,019 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. And Emmett King, in his senior year, had 1,095 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. That was Veer. That is Veer to a T. They also had David Hodge at linebacker, who was a very talented college linebacker. Unfortunately for them, they met Joe Montana in the Cotton Bowl that year, and Notre Dame narrowly beat them 35-34. They would make it back to the Cotton Bowl the year after. Again, they won the Southwest Conference. Terrell Clark came in and immediately dominated. Rushed for 1,063 yards and 7 touchdowns. And the Cougars won 17-14. In 1984, the Cougars made it back to the Cotton Bowl after winning the Southwest Conference again, but they were destroyed. They lost to Boston College 45-28. Unfortunately for Yeoman, he got caught up in a recruiting scandal. He did give cash to players along with other benefits. You can't do that, and his career really ended poorly. He did give cash to players that he recruited along with other benefits. And on the football side of things, in 85, the Cougars went 4-7. And in 86, the Cougars went 1-10. Yeoman was forced to retire. And the Cougars suffered penalties that would destroy them for the whole 1990s decade and through the first half of the 2000s. But that shouldn't negate what Yeoman did before that. Fantastic coach, an innovator both on and off the field. May he rest in peace. The second guy who unfortunately passed away yesterday in the football world is Howard Mudd. A guy who in the mid to late 60s was one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. And after that, put together a fantastic career as an offensive line coach. He was drafted in the 9th round in 1964 out of Hillsdale College, which is in Hillsdale, Michigan. Not exactly a powerhouse school, but Mudd overcame all of that. He dominated at Hillsdale, is actually in the NAIA Hall of Fame. And it didn't take him too long to earn a spot playing for the Niners. In his second season, he started all 14 games, and he had a 10 approximate value, according to Pro Football Reference. That is really, really good. And the Niners in that year had the best offense in the NFL when you look at points per game. In 1966, Mudd made the first of 3 straight Pro Bowls, and in 67 and 68, he made All-Pro. In those years, he never had a Pro Football Reference approximate value worse than 9. And it looked like he was set up for a really lengthy career as a stalwart of the Niners' offensive line. But then in 1969, he was traded to the Bears and really wasn't that good. He spent one more year with the Bears in 1970, but he retired after that. But he did enough to be named to the NFL's 1960s All-Decade Team. But he still loved the game. And he got into coaching. He's best known for being Colts offensive line coach throughout most of Peyton Manning's time there. During his time with the Colts, they allowed the fewest sacks in the NFL. 182 games, 218 sacks. And you think about how many times Peyton Manning dropped back to pass. That is an insane statistic. Jeff Saturday would have been good without Mudd, but he was great with Mudd. Mudd retired from the Colts after they lost to the Saints in Super Bowl 44. But he came back to coach the Eagles for a little bit. LaShawn McCoy had his best season with Mudd as offensive line coach. That's when he had 17 touchdowns and over 1,300 rushing yards. That's really when he earned the nickname Shady McCoy. He died yesterday at the age of 78 because of injuries that he sustained in a motorcycle accident. He was a really tough guy. That's a very fitting way for him to go out. He didn't show his age at all when he was on the sidelines in Indianapolis or Philadelphia. He didn't show his age off the football field either. May he rest in peace. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that baseball might be a game of inches, but the 1984 Tigers had all the inches. In fact, they owned the yardstick.